Hey there, mystery lovers. Welcome to Mystery Archives, where we unravel the secrets hidden in the shadows and dive deep into the unknown. I'm Ian Cartwell, your guide on this thrilling journey through unsolved cases, eerie legends, and mind-bending mysteries. Each week, we'll explore a different enigma, whether it's a chilling true crime story, a haunting urban legend, or a puzzling historical event. So grab your magnifying glass, turn down the lights, and let's embark on a quest for the truth. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join our community of curious minds. Together, we'll seek the answers to questions that keep us up at night. Let's begin. Secrets in Crestwood. Act 1. Whispers of Suspicion. 17-year-old Ivy Reed is no stranger to boredom. Living in the picturesque but stiflingly predictable town of Crestwood, she spends most of her free time indulging her obsession with true crime. With no unsolved mysteries or local intrigue, Ivy dives into crime podcasts, online forums, and documentaries, building a mental arsenal of investigative techniques that she's never had the chance to use, until now. The peace of Crestwood is shattered when Ivy's history teacher, Mrs. Evelyn Morgan, is found dead at the bottom of her grand staircase. While the police quickly rule the death as accidental, blaming a slip on the stairs, Ivy can't shake the feeling that something's off. Mrs. Morgan was always meticulous, careful, and never the type to leave things to chance. It's too perfect, too convenient. As Ivy becomes increasingly fixated on the case, her best friend, Riley Monroe, reluctantly tags along. While Riley isn't nearly as invested in solving mysteries, she's always up for adventure, and Ivy's investigation promises just that. What begins as a side hobby, something to stave off the monotony of senior year, quickly spirals into something far more serious. Ivy begins by snooping around Mrs. Morgan's life, visiting her house, poking through old school records, and eavesdropping on conversations around town. In Mrs. Morgan's belongings, Ivy finds the first clue, a hidden collection of old photographs and documents. The photos show Mrs. Morgan with prominent figures from Crestwood's elite, including Henry Maddox, a wealthy businessman with deep ties to local politics, and disturbingly, Margot Reed, Ivy's own mother. As Ivy digs further, her own family's connections to Mrs. Morgan and to the powerful people of Crestwood begin to raise red flags. She uncovers a troubling pattern of secrecy and control among the town's most influential residents, and whispers of an old scandal that no one talks about. Then, out of nowhere, Ivy's older brother, Cameron Reed, returns to town after several years of silence, bringing with him even more questions than answers. His reappearance seems suspiciously timed, and Ivy begins to suspect that he too is involved in whatever Mrs. Morgan was trying to expose. Act 2. The Crestwood Circle. Ivy's investigation deepens when she uncovers the existence of the Crestwood Circle, a secretive group made up of the town's wealthiest and most powerful citizens. According to old newspaper clippings and Mrs. Morgan's private notes, the Circle had been involved in manipulating local elections, covering up scandals, and silencing anyone who threatened their influence. Mrs. Morgan's cryptic writings suggest that she had been on the verge of blowing the lid off a conspiracy that stretched back decades, and Ivy becomes convinced that her teacher's death was no accident. The Crestwood Circle seems to be at the center of it all, but getting proof is nearly impossible. The deeper Ivy goes, the more dangerous her investigation becomes. She receives anonymous notes warning her to stop poking around, and one night she's followed home by a shadowy figure in a black car. The thrill of solving the case has turned into something darker, real danger. Despite the fear, Ivy's curiosity drives her forward. Riley grows increasingly concerned as Ivy starts to unravel, losing sleep, sneaking out at night and putting herself in risky situations. She insists that Ivy let the police handle it, but Ivy has no faith in the authorities, especially after noticing the town's lead investigator, Detective Harper Quinn, regularly speaking with members of the circle. Ivy starts to wonder if the local police force itself is compromised, and Quinn, a once respected officer, now seems deeply entangled in Crestwood's corruption. Cameron's behavior also becomes more erratic, adding to Ivy's suspicions. He's taking mysterious late-night trips, and she overhears a heated argument between him and their mother, Margot. Margot's insistence that Cameron keep quiet about something only heightens Ivy's paranoia. After following her brother one night, Ivy discovers that Cameron has been meeting in secret with Henry Maddox, a key figure in the circle, further confirming her fears that her family is hiding something monumental. Ivy's world begins to spiral as she realizes her own family may be part of the conspiracy. She starts seeing connections everywhere, and paranoia grips her tightly. But in the midst of it all, she stumbles upon an old, unsolved case: the disappearance of Lily Hastings, a young woman who vanished 20 years ago after publicly accusing a member of the circle of assault. Ivy becomes convinced that Lily's disappearance is tied to Mrs. Morgan's murder, both of them victims of the same corrupt power structure. Act 3. Family Ties, Dark Secrets. As Ivy gets closer to the truth, her relationship with her family starts to crumble. One evening, after a particularly heated confrontation with Cameron, he confesses a partial truth. Mrs. Morgan had uncovered dirt on members of the Crestwood Circle, and Cameron, desperate for money, had been helping cover up the secrets of the elite for years. His guilt is palpable, but he insists he didn't kill Mrs. Morgan, though he admits to playing a role in trying to keep her quiet. Reeling from the revelation, Ivy doesn't know whom to trust. Her brother is complicit, her mother is hiding things, and even her father, who she thought was uninvolved, seems suspiciously disconnected from it all. Worse, the more Ivy digs, the more she realizes that many of the town's tragedies, Lily Hastings' disappearance, old fires, bankruptcies, were not accidents or mere misfortunes, but carefully orchestrated incidents designed to keep the circle's secrets buried. Determined not to let the same thing happen to her, Ivy confronts Detective Quinn, who, it turns out, has been struggling with her own guilt. Quinn reveals that she was assigned to investigate Lily Hastings' disappearance when she was a rookie cop, but her case was shut down by higher-ups who were part of the circle. She had been working with Cameron secretly, hoping to gather enough evidence to expose Maddox and the rest of the group, but Quinn had underestimated the depth of their influence. Now, she's ready to take them down, and with Ivy's help they might finally have enough to bring the circle to justice. As the danger intensifies, Ivy's enemies close in. She finds herself stalked by unseen figures, and Riley is threatened, forcing Ivy to confront how far she's willing to go for the truth. But Ivy has come too far to back down now. Armed with evidence from Mrs. Morgan's hidden journals, Cameron's reluctant confessions, and Quinn's insider knowledge, Ivy and Quinn hatch a plan to expose the circle once and for all. Act 4. The Unmasking. The final showdown comes when Ivy and Quinn plant a trap to expose Henry Maddox and the Crestwood Circle. Using Ivy's access to her family's connections, they arrange for a private meeting at a secluded location, with the intention of recording a confession from Maddox. But Maddox, cunning and ruthless, knows what's coming. He turns the tables on Ivy and Quinn, ambushing them at the meeting with his own set of hired enforcers. Just when it seems like the truth will remain buried forever, an unexpected ally arrives: Cameron. Having been unable to live with his guilt, Cameron risks everything to help his sister and the detective, bringing with him additional evidence that implicates Maddox in not just Mrs. Morgan's murder, but a series of crimes stretching back years, including the disappearance of Lily Hastings. In a tense confrontation, Ivy finally gets Maddox to confess to orchestrating Mrs. Morgan's murder. He had her killed when she threatened to expose the circle's corrupt dealings and connections to a human trafficking ring they had been covertly operating. Mrs. Morgan, who had always been dedicated to helping the vulnerable, had uncovered proof of this horrifying operation and was gathering information to turn over to the authorities. Maddox had her silenced before she could make her move. Maddox is arrested, but not before issuing a final warning to Ivy and Quinn. The circle is larger than they think, and even with his downfall, there are others who will protect the group's interests. Act 5. The Cost of Truth. With Maddox in jail and the Crestwood Circle exposed, the town is left reeling. Ivy's family, once pillars of the community, is torn apart by the revelations. Margot Reed, who had been entangled in the Circle's dealings to maintain her family's status, flees the town in disgrace, leaving Ivy and Cameron to pick up the pieces. Though the immediate danger is gone, Ivy is left haunted by the things she's uncovered. Her trust in those closest to her has been shattered, and the once idyllic Crestwood will never feel the same. Still, despite the personal toll it's taken, Ivy finds herself unable to walk away from her obsession with solving mysteries. Even as her friends and family encourage her to move on, Ivy knows that there are still unanswered questions, still shadows lurking beneath the surface of Crestwood. In the final scene, Ivy sits alone in her room, flipping through her old crime journals. There are more cases to solve, more secrets to uncover. She closes the book with a smirk, knowing that even though Crestwood has been exposed, the world is full of mysteries, and she's not done chasing them yet.